हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे फिलिप लार्किन की बुक MCMX14 के बारे में। पोएट के बारे में हम पहले एक वीडियो में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, जिसका लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में। चलिए आज पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करते हैं। पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं उसके कुछ की फीचर्स। MCMX14 by Philip Larkin is a war poem. It focuses on the important changes England faced after the end of World War II. This poem was first published in Larkin's most famous collection, The Wits and Weddings, in 1964. It is one of the poet's best-loved poems and was written in response to the First World War. MCMX14 explores themes of war, transformation, and time. The poet focuses on the changes that have come over the country since the beginning and end of war, and allude to all the changes that are sure to come. It is important to note before beginning this piece that the title MCMX14 is the year 1914 spelled out in Roman numerals. By choosing right the, the title in Roman numerals rather than in numbers, Larkin is referring to the grand nature of what has been lost and how pivotal that year was. It also alludes to inscriptions on memorials or tombs, which are often done in numerals. It is a war poem that focuses on the changes that come over England after the end of World War One. The poem begins with the poet focusing on a picture. Within it are men who have just signed up to fight in the war. Their faces make it clear that they have no idea what is about to happen to them. The narrative zooms out, taking the reader across the countryside and then to all of England. There are going to be so many changes in the coming years. The speaker says everything is going to be different and innocence is going to be lost. The poem has four stanzas that are separated into sets of 8 lines known as octaves. These octaves do not follow a specific rhyme scheme, but there are moments of rhyme within the line. For instance, the fourth and eighth lines of each stanza rhyme. Upon close inspection, a reader will realize that the 64 lines of the poem are one long run sentence. चलिए पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करते. Stanza 1. Those long uneven lines, standing as patiently as if they were stretched outside the oval or villa park. The crowns of hats, the sun, on mustached archaic faces, grinning as if it were all an August bank holiday lark. In the first lines of the poem, the speaker begins by describing a photograph. In it, there are the long, uneven lines of people. These are men who have just signed up to go to war. The poet zooms in on their faces, focusing on them individually but also as a whole in order to get a sense of their numbers but also their personalities. He mentions crowns of hats that can be seen in the photo as well as smiling mustached archaic faces. These men are looking at him out of the past, unknowingly entering into a fight that will likely take their lives. This is contrasted with their expressions, which appear to the speaker as light-hearted. It is as if they are on a holiday. Stanza 2. And the shut shops, the bleached, established names on the sun blinds, the farthings and sovereigns, and dark-clothed children at play. Called after kings and queens, the tin advertisements for cocoa and twist, and the pubs wide open all day. In the second stanza, the speaker moves away from the men to speak on the wider context of the image. There are shut shops in the photo, and many of these have sun bleached signs in front of them. They are old fashioned just as the men are. Around the stores, the poet notes dark clothed children at play. These kids represent a time period in their actions and style, as well as their names. They are named after kings and queens. These names would include Elizabeth and George, old fashioned names that are less common today or when the poem was written than they were then. He also takes a moment to note the advertisements or templates. Stanza 3. And the countryside not caring, the place names all hazed over, with flowering grasses and fields shadowing doomsday lines under beats restless silence. The differently dressed servants with tiny rooms and huge houses, the dust behind limousines. In the third stanza, the poet moves further away from the men in the photo. The poet takes the poem out and over the countryside. There are people out there too, living in larger houses with differently dressed servants. These men and women are unconcerned. They don't know that everything is about to change. There is a reference in the stanza to doomsday lines. This is in regard to a book, The Doomsday Book, that outlined the cities and towns taken by William the Conqueror. Just as things changed then, so too they are going to change now. Stanza 4. Never such innocence, never before or since, has changed itself to pass without a word. The men leaving the gardens tidy, the thousands of marriages lasting a little while longer, never such innocence again. In the final stanza, Larkin makes use of anaphora. The stanza begins with never. At the start of the first two lines, he notes that never will the innocence of this photo return to the world again. We have learned the truth about human nature and can't go back. The world cannot go back to the gardens of pre-war times. They are confined to the new world of battlefields and death. The marriages of the past were longer lasting. There were fewer divorces and both parties survived for longer. Now that is no longer the case. The poem ends with the repetition of the line, never such innocence. Poetic devices. Larkin makes use of several poetic techniques in MCMXIV. These include but are not limited to juxtaposition, anaphora, and repetition. The latter is the use and reuse of a specific technique, word, tone, or phrase within the poem. There is a great example in the last stanza when the poet used the line "Never such innocence" twice. It acts as a refrain within a single stanza of text, re-emphasizing how the world has changed and transitioned away forever from the innocence of pre-war times. Juxtaposition is when two contrasting things are placed near one another in order to emphasize that contrast. A poet usually does this in order to emphasize a larger theme of their text or make an important point about the difference between these two things. There's a solid example in the first stanzas when the poet compares the future of the women in the photograph to their expressions within it. They're smiling as though they're about to go on a holiday instead of their deaths. Larkin also makes use of anaphora, or the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of multiple lines, usually in succession. This technique is used to create emphasis. A list of phrases, items, or actions may be created through its implementation. This can be seen in almost all the stanzas, but most powerfully in the final stanza, where the first two lines start with never. Themes. The main themes explored in Philip Larkin's MCMX14 are the loss of innocence, the impact of war, and the passage of time. The poem contrasts the perceived naivety and innocence of pre-World War One England with the harsh realities of the war and its aftermath. It also reflects on how war irrecoverably changes society and individuals, leaving a sense of irreversible loss and the changed world. Loss of innocence. The poem opens up with a depiction of a seemingly idyllic scene of men volunteering for the poem, presented as an almost playful sporting event. The scene, however, is immediately juxtaposed with the knowledge of the devastating war that followed, highlighting the naivety and lack of awareness of the volunteers. Impact of war. MCMX 14 emphasizes the transformative effect of World War One on England and its people. The poem suggests that the war shattered the perceived stability and normalcy of pre-war life, leading to a profound and lasting change in society and individual perspectives. Passage of time and change. The poem uses the imagery of a photograph and descriptions of everyday life to capture a moment in time. Larkin then contrasts this with the dramatic changes that occur after the war, highlighting the relentless and irreversible passage of time and the way it shapes individual and collective experiences. The final line, never such innocence again, encapsulates this loss and the sense that things will never truly return to how they were. थैंक यू। आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको पसंद आई। कैसी लगे हमें कमेंट करके बताएं और हमें ये भी कमेंट करके बताएं कि आप आने वाली वीडियोस किस टॉपिक पर देखना चाहते हैं। अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल। मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे। टिल देन कीप वॉचिंग एंड कीप सपोर्टिंग द सोलफुल डायरी। थैंक यू।